In the turbulent annals of Roman history, few chapters are as dramatic and transformative as the period from 133 to 78 BC. This era was marked by fierce political rivalry, bold reforms, and widespread conflict that not only reshaped Rome's institutions, but also redefined the destinies of its citizens. During these pivotal years, Rome faced a critical crossroads where the balance of power was challenged by both established elites and emerging voices representing the common people. The struggle between the Optimates, those who championed the traditional authority of the Senate, and the Populares, the champions of reform who sought a more inclusive, egalitarian political system, would leave an indelible mark on Roman society. This saga of ambition, reform, and bloodshed revealed a profound tension between the old guard and the forces of change. Traditional power structures, deeply rooted in generations of patrician rule, were confronted by innovative leaders who believed that the state should reflect the will and welfare of all its citizens. This era was not merely a series of isolated political skirmishes, but rather a comprehensive redefinition of what it meant to belong to a community bound by civic duty, honor, and mutual responsibility. Throughout this video, we explore the causes and consequences of this transformative period. We will delve into the details of sweeping legislative reforms, the dramatic rise and fall of influential families, and the enduring question of how best to govern a republic, increasingly torn by internal strife. As we journey through these historical moments, we will uncover lessons that continue to resonate today, reminding us that great political change often comes through challenging the status quo to envision a better future. This exploration will not only recount historical facts, but will ignite curiosity and inspire reflection on how visionary leadership can redefine societies in times of turmoil. Rome's political landscape before the Gracchi era was a complex tapestry woven from generations of tradition, power struggles, and gradual evolution. The Roman Republic was structured around multiple institutions, with the Senate at its core, representing Rome's aristocratic elite. Complementing the Senate were popular assemblies and the tribunate, which was designed to give voice to the common people. Over time, the balance between these bodies shifted as societal changes and growing economic disparities challenged long-held customs. The traditional aristocrats guarded their privileges fiercely, while emerging members of society demanded a stronger say in governance. At the same time, Rome was not a city confined by its own walls. Its reach extended to far-flung frontiers that spanned Gaul, Asia Minor, Syria, and Egypt. With each conquest, Rome absorbed new peoples and lands, which further complicated the republic's internal dynamics. The influx of wealth from these provinces widened the gap between rich and poor, setting the stage for social unrest. Moreover, the question of Roman citizenship, especially for those from conquered regions, became a critical issue that fueled debates about who truly belonged to the Roman state. In the midst of these developments, the assembly of tribes began to emerge as a significant counterweight to the established power of the Senate. Citizens who had long been treated as mere subjects started insisting on recognition, reform, and equitable distribution of resources. The seeds of discontent were already sown in the hearts of many, and as economic inequality grew, calls for change became louder and more urgent. These political and social pressures created an environment in which radical ideas could take root and flourish. Understanding this historical background is crucial for grasping the revolutionary nature of the subsequent reforms. The transformation in Rome's governance was not abrupt. It was the result of decades of tensions, grievances, and a gradual loss of faith in traditional institutions. This deep-rooted context laid the groundwork for the dramatic measures introduced by reformist leaders who aspired to reshape the Republic in response to its evolving challenges. At the heart of Rome's early reform struggles was Tiberius Gracchus, a tribune with a fearless vision for change. Born into a distinguished family and inspired by Greek Stoic philosophy, he believed that justice must guide government decisions. His experience as quaestor in Spain taught him the vital importance of supporting free Roman farmers, whose decline threatened the Republic's military strength. Tiberius proposed bold agrarian reforms designed to revitalize Rome's foundation by re-establishing traditional land limits while expanding access for the landless. His law limited any individual to 500 jugera of public land, but allowed an extra 250 jugera for each of 2 grown sons. Excess land was to be surrendered to the state, assessed by a commission that offered compensation for past improvements, and then reassigned to deserving, landless citizens as private property. The Senate, protective of its long-held privileges and vast estates, reacted with fierce opposition to these sweeping reforms. They deployed a tribune named Octavius to veto the proposal, attempting to maintain the traditional power structure. In an unprecedented move, Tiberius appealed to the Assembly of Tribes, accusing Octavius of undermining the people's will. The Assembly, moved by Tiberius's arguments, deposed Octavius and ensured the ratification of the Agrarian law. His reform marked a turning point, challenging the authority of the Senate and igniting a struggle between the established elites and the common people. These events set a dangerous precedent by showing that popular appeal could override centuries of tradition, a lesson that resonated throughout Roman history. Tragically, Tiberius Gracchus lost his life in a riot sparked by intense political conflict, leaving a legacy of reform. After his death, agrarian laws continued to influence policy, though later revisions stripped the commission's power. Tiberius's bold actions inspired future leaders to question established authority and pursue further reform in the ever-changing republic. The reforms of Tiberius Gracchus not only aimed to redistribute land, but also sought to redefine the very nature of Roman citizenship and the relationship between the state and its people. His radical approach opened up a fierce debate that questioned the role of tradition in governance and set in motion a series of confrontations that would eventually shake the foundations of the Republic. Historians reflect on Tiberius's legacy as a catalyst for change, emphasizing that his willingness to confront the entrenched power structures left a permanent mark on Roman political life. Supporters argued that his reforms nurtured a new generation of citizen soldiers who held a personal stake in the prosperity of their homeland. Critics, on the other hand, warned that bypassing traditional institutions in favor of popular rule risked destabilizing centuries of balanced governance. The controversy over his methods continues to spark debates among scholars and citizens, reminding us that the path to progress is often paved with conflict. In the aftermath of Tiberius's reforms, Rome witnessed a period of instability and debate that signaled the birth of a new political era. Citizens from all walks of life, inspired by his bold challenge to the status quo, began to demand accountability and representation from their rulers. The ensuing years were marked by both progress in legislative reforms and deepening divisions that would eventually lead to further upheaval within the Republic. Yet despite the conflict and controversy, Tiberius's actions opened a window into new possibilities for participatory governance. His legacy serves as a potent reminder that revolutionary ideas often arise from the depths of adversity, forcing societies to reimagine the principles of power and fairness. Even centuries later, the memory of Tiberius Gracchus inspires admiration, encapsulating the timeless struggle for justice and equality. Following in the footsteps of his brother, Caius Gracchus emerged as an even more dynamic and forceful tribune, determined to continue the reformist agenda. With a passionate oratory and a relentless energy, he sought not only to implement his brother's reforms, but also to expand them into new areas of public policy. Caius returned from his quaestorship in Sardinia with fresh determination, and his subsequent election as tribune marked the beginning of a new and transformative phase. Upon taking office, Caius set an ambitious legislative program in motion, reenacting his brother's agrarian law and introducing additional measures to benefit the populace. One of his most notable acts was the implementation of a grain law that subsidized the cost of bread for Rome's urban poor. This policy not only ensured that citizens could afford food during times of scarcity, but it also fostered a deep sense of loyalty among the masses. Caius further reformed the judicial system by transferring the trial of extortion cases from senators to the equestrian order. By redefining the qualifications of jurors, he ensured that only those with sufficient means could serve, thus sidelining many traditional senatorial influences. He also reorganized the administration of consular provinces by requiring their designation prior to elections, a measure that diminished the Senate's unilateral control. In an innovative move, Caius championed the establishment of new colonies, including one at Carthage, thereby extending Roman influence beyond Italy. He also advocated for the extension of Roman citizenship to Latin and Italian allies, seeking to create a more inclusive national community. However, Caius faced staunch opposition from the Senate, which viewed his reforms as an unprecedented threat to their power. When his proposal for the extension of the franchise was vetoed by a rival tribune, the political climate rapidly deteriorated. In 121 BC, following escalating tensions and strategic missteps, his supporters were overwhelmed in violent confrontations, and Caius met his end. Caius Gracchus's tenure as tribune represented a high point in popular empowerment, as he effectively challenged the entrenched authority of the Senate. His sweeping reforms in judicial administration, provincial governance, and social welfare laid the groundwork for future political battles in the Republic. Although his methods were fiercely criticized by conservative forces, his vision of a more inclusive state continues to resonate with many scholars and citizens alike. In many ways, Caius expanded the boundaries of what was politically acceptable, leaving an enduring legacy of reform and resistance to elitism. The political career of Caius Gracchus was marked by a series of bold initiatives that often put him at odds with Rome's traditional power brokers. His legislative efforts, while popular among the people, also revealed deep divisions within Roman society about the proper role of governmental authority and the limits of state intervention. These controversies sparked impassioned debates in the Senate and the popular assemblies, and they eventually led to a polarized political environment where reform and reaction stood in stark opposition. Critics argued that his actions threatened the established order, while his supporters saw him as a necessary force to modernize a system that was increasingly out of touch with the realities of its people. In retrospect, the saga of Caius Gracchus offers invaluable insights into the inherent tensions between progressivism and conservatism, and his story remains a touchstone for discussions about power and reform. Its lessons continue to inform contemporary debates on governance, equality, and the rights of citizens. Examining the career of Caius Gracchus provides a timeless lens through which we understand the transformative power of bold political action in the face of overwhelming opposition. His legacy endures in reform. Today, the reforms initiated by Tiberius and Caius Gracchus continue to provoke discussion among historians and political theorists. Their efforts to redistribute land, extend citizenship, and involve the populace in governance laid the foundation for many modern democratic principles. Even though their methods were controversial and often violent, the Gracchi reforms highlighted the urgent need for change in a society rife with inequality and concentrated power. Their legacy is not merely measured in legislative achievements, but in the enduring debate over the balance of power between the elite and the common citizen. After the bloodshed and turmoil that marked the Gracchi era, the Roman Senate managed to reassert its traditional authority for a time. However, the reliance on extra-legal violence to settle political disagreements left a bitter residue among many citizens. The methods employed against the Gracchi set a concerning precedent, showing that force rather than dialogue could determine the course of politics. As a consequence, the Senate's authority was both contested and diminished over time, paving the way for further conflicts within the Republic. This tension between order and reform would eventually contribute to the Republic's downfall. The Gracchi reforms also had significant effects on Rome's provincial policies. By challenging traditional Senate control over provinces and judicial matters, these early reforms paved the way for a more complex and often problematic administration of Rome's vast territories. The shift in power dynamics contributed to increased corruption and a system where economic interests frequently overshadowed the welfare of local populations. In many provinces, this led to harsher exploitation and misgovernment, illustrating how the legacy of the Gracchi became intertwined with both progress and decline. Overall, the Gracchi reforms revealed that attempts to correct systemic injustices are often met with severe backlash from established powers. While their reforms briefly expanded the rights and influence of common citizens, the violent suppression of their initiatives left a lasting scar on Roman politics. The subsequent erosion of institutional trust and recurring factional strife in the Republic can be traced back, in part, to the legacy of these early reformers. Their struggle warns us that radical change may force a society to confront deep and costly transformations. Ultimately, the Gracchi reforms reshaped the trajectory of Roman history by highlighting the potential for creating a more equitable society and the inherent risks of surpassing established authority. Their influence continues to be felt in discussions about democratic governance. Reflecting on the turbulent legacy of the Gracchi era, it becomes clear that the reforms of Tiberius and Caius Gracchus were groundbreaking yet deeply divisive. Their attempts to empower the common citizen and rebalance the concentration of power drastically altered the course of Roman history. For many, their actions symbolize a bold challenge to traditional authority, a moment when vehement passion collided with established privilege, setting in motion a series of events that would ultimately contribute to the downfall of the Republic. The violence that ended the lives of these reformers, while tragic, ignited a legacy of political activism that has resonated through the ages. Their struggles underscore the notion that significant social change is never achieved without sacrifice and disruption. In the wake of their reforms, the power dynamics within Rome shifted, leading to an enduring debate about the role of popular sovereignty versus elite control. This debate remains relevant today as modern societies continue to grapple with similar issues of representation, justice, and social equity. In summary, the Gracchi reforms offer invaluable lessons about the complexities of political change. They remind us that while innovative ideas can pave the way for progress, such change often comes at a high cost. Ultimately, the story of the Gracchi serves both as a historical cautionary tale and as an inspiration for those who dare to challenge entrenched power structures in pursuit of a fairer society. Through their tragic yet revolutionary journey, we learn that meaningful reform requires both courage and sacrifice indeed.